Hi, Vince Barnes from Intergroup Australia. We're international freight forwarders and customs brokers. I've got 47 years in the industry, and I'm joined today by Rob Naumovski, who's our freight manager and widely travelled and experienced member of our staff. How are you, Rob?
I'm good, thank you. I've been in industry myself for just on 28 years and have a wealth of knowledge in all aspects of freight forwarding and logistics. So always happy to provide advice.
Yeah, and a good man he is too. We're continuing on our discussions of Incoterms, and one we're going to spend some time on is called DAP, which is an acronym for Delivered at Place. Not commonly used, but often used, and it means exactly what it sounds like. That the cost of buying the goods includes the cost of moving the goods and all services up to the point of delivering those goods to the consignee or buyer in their country of origin or Australia. Um, Quite involved. It means that the buyer or the consignee has to get their head around what they want out of their transaction, and that they need to make sure they achieve everything they need out of the transaction to be covered off. Now, quite often in DAP terms, it doesn't include the cost of government duties and taxes at destination. That's usually specified in the sale agreement. The upside of this, and I'll let Rob expand on this, is how little the buyer has to do in the physical side of handling the DAP consignment.
Thank you, Vince. Well, correct. DAPs. Don't mind DAPs. We get in touch with our agents, or agents get in touch with ourselves at Origin, and they'll ask us for cost associated at destination. If it is, we're talking specifically an import into Australia in this example. Our agent asks for our costs for customs clearance, local port charges, delivery charges to the consignee's door. The minutiae details such as mode of transport, etc., is all required as well, because we do base our quotation based on all details available. Whilst they can change, of course, in agreement with the agent, predominantly speaking, the consignee here, the client here, has to tell us exactly what they require so we can relay that information to our agent. Our agent then will quote the shipper our local charges, all their freight charges, and also port charges, etc., to include also collecting the cargo from the shipper's door, and then to ensure it makes the specific vessel as requested or aircraft as requested. For it to arrive into Melbourne, we will then, if we are nominated to do the customs clearance, we'll do the customs clearance and arrange delivery once the cargo is available to the consignee's door. Now, you did touch on a good point about the government charges, such as any import duty, import GST, the compo fee, other associated costs. These have to be paid locally here. The consignee is made aware of this beforehand, that they will be applicable or
Yes.
subject to any duties or GST. So that's all the consignee here pays, and then they've got their goods. So they're pretty happy.
Generally speaking, that's what happens too. And as we've sort of alluded to, the upside is that the buyer has got a all-in price excluding the government revenues. Then they know what to expect. The downside is if you haven't stipulated everything that you need to happen in the original agreement, or there's you haven't spelt out your requirements for transport and timelines, it can work against you if you haven't really been detailed in the way that you've set up the actual sale agreement. So we would encourage people to really understand what they're doing in such a sale transaction.
Good point, Vince, because when a client, let's say an agent contacts me from, we'll say, Indonesia, and says, Robert, can you please provide port charges, clearance charges, and delivery charges to this specific address? Fine. What we do is we don't just rely on their information. We will Google their address, a consignee's address, to see that it's suitable for delivery, to ensure that it's not a residential if they're planning on dropping off a container. And we'll contact the consignor as well to find the exact details they require for delivery. Some instances, I've had one client in particular of office furniture who was delivering to basically to like a CBD building complex in Sydney. And upon speaking to the consignee, they explained what the delivery point looks like, can offer, and I was sort of determined that a tailgate truck would be required for delivery because of the size and the area we can deliver to. So basically, cargo gets loaded into the truck, it drops down to the ground, and then it can be taken away manually, either unpacked individually or onto what we call a pallet jack to take a pallet away and move it into their area of storage. This was not originally requested by the agent. So in that instance, I sourced the costs for this additional service. We've had other instances where we've had pieces of cargo that are 9 meters long.
Yeah,
That's not your standard delivery.
It's the great unknown, isn't it?
Correct, Rob? Correct. But that is on us as your experienced partner to source that information, to find that information, and then find the best, if possible, solution.
Yep.
And obviously the cost associated.
Yeah, great examples there, Rob. Making sure that the details of DAP terms are really where they need to be and cover off all the elements you need. You need to have a little bit of forethought before you enter into it and make sure you tick all the boxes before you get into it. It takes a lot of the pain out of an international trade transaction and DAP because there's some obviously the consignee wants to know when they're getting the goods, when it's travelling, and they want to monitor, but the responsibility for getting them to Australia lies with the shipper of the goods, and it's less work for the consignee to have to contemplate, but still requires their involvement nonetheless. One last thing we'll touch on, and we've mentioned the need for marine insurance previously. Marine insurance really important. Marine insurance policies are not hugely expensive, but they can have a big impact if there's a problem with particularly the ship in shipping. If the ship is badly damaged or sinks on the voyage, it can result in some fairly significant expenses. As a consignee who has goods on board the ship, and it's called general average. It's been in play for over 300 years, and if you grab a bill of lading and look in that fine print on the back of the bill of lading that nobody can read, you'll see it actually covers general average, and it's huge, and it's in the shipping line basically averages the cost of the damage of the ship and the cargo across everybody who has an interest in the ship. In other words, who's got freight on board. And so a $5,000 or $10,000 shipment, you could end up with a bill for $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000, depending on your proportion of your goods on the ship. That's a really simple explanation. If you haven't got it, get it. You can get a policy per consignment, or you can get an annual policy, which is more economical, but it's based on the value of your goods that you ship over the year. For raising this, get a marine insurance policy. It could actually save your business.
Irrespective if you're sending one shipment or annually you're sending 50, 100 containers, you should be investigating it and seeing if it's, and you will notice the benefits greatly outweigh the costs.
As we always say, if you've got a question,
Ask it.
Ask. If it's a simple question, don't be frightened to think, oh, they're going to think I'm useless. Far from it. We will happily answer any question because you might be surprised at the answer you actually get.